Shalom Aleichem, Rabotai. Welcome to a Wednesday class. I'm Yalkut Yosef. We are on the topic of Yalkut Shabbat. And last time we began to speak a little bit about something called Psik Reshei. I want to elaborate a little bit on that. It's an important term that we should know. We spoke about a few important things. We spoke about returning items to the plata, and we explained that there's something called mifzeh, which means it seems like. One of the problems of putting food into an oven or something like that would be it seems like you're cooking. And another problem would be when you put the pot with sand coals, even though it was heated from before Shabbat, is shema yichate b'gichalim. There's a fear that maybe you will come to play with the coals. So for these two reasons, one is a real reason that you may do chilul Shabbat. Another reason is the appearance. That's why we forbid to put food directly on coals, and a plata solves that problem. There's no fear that it looks like you're cooking because no one cooks on a plata. It's just there to heat up, and you can't play with coals to make the temperature higher. All right, but another thing we mentioned at the end of the class is a foundation in halakha called Psik Reshei. It literally means to cut off a head. Yona baruchim habayim, I didn't tell you shalom yet. I don't know who the last phone is, but baruch haba to you too as well. So what is Psik Reshei?
Giacomo.
Giacomo, baruch haba. Okay, amazing. So Psik Reshei means cutting off the head. Where does that come from? So back in the day, the kids, they didn't have balls, right? A ball is something that you buy today in a store, but there were no balls. How did they make a ball for the kids? Sounds a little bit strange, I know, Johnny, baruch haba. But the way balls were made, where they would chop off the head of the chicken and let the kids play with it. As a ball, that was the kid's toy, okay? So one of the questions is, if my child wants to play with a ball during Shabbat, am I allowed to chop off the chicken's head so that the kid could play? You say, what am I doing? I just want to give him a ball to play with. Yeah, you want to give him a ball, baruch haba, Simon. You want to give him a ball, but by giving him the ball, you're definitely going to kill an animal. It's called Psik Reshei velo yamut. You're going to cut off the chicken's head and he's not going to die. You're not allowed to kill. So that's where the Psik Reshei came from. But in halakha, it refers to anything that when you do one thing, for sure the second thing will happen. You forgot the light on in the fridge. So I'm going to open up the fridge, Psik Reshei. For sure it's going to happen that the light will turn on. But that's not my intention. I just want to take food out of the fridge. It's not my intention to kill the chicken either. I just want the head. But as a result of, a chilul Shabbat will happen. So is it allowed or is it forbidden? So it depends. The foundation is, according to the Sephardim, if the Psik Reshei is something from the Torah, for example, by opening the fridge door, you start a fire somehow, or you have those old light bulbs, today LEDs, or is it bad if it's from Deraita or from Derabanan? But the old light bulbs were considered a fire. So in those fridges, when you would open it, you would start a fire from the Torah. And then even though your mind is not set on doing that, it just happens on as a by-side, whatever it is, it's still a sin. But if it's a Psik Reshei from Chachamim, for example, an LED light, most poskim hold that it's from Chachamim, or you forgot to turn off your alarm sensors before Shabbat, and now you're walking around the house, and every time you walk into a room, a sensor, a red LED light turns on. Is that a problem or not? So my mind is not on that, but it doesn't matter. It's a reality. It's happening because I walked in. Can I or can I not? If you're Ashkenazi, you're in big trouble. You cannot walk into that house. For Sfaradim, we are lenient. We hold that if I'm not trying to turn on that light, and it's from Derabanan, it's not from the Torah like before, like we said, starting a fire, then I'm allowed to do it. And this is relevant for many cases, like we said with the sensors of the alarm, like we said with the fridge. Like we said, if someone has a staircase that once he starts walking up the staircase, the lights are going to turn on. That's how the building is. He doesn't want that. Yeah, but what light is it? If it's an LED light, it's not your business. Of course, let's maybe mention this. There's something else called mitasek. Mitasek means that you had no idea. If you had no idea that the light is going to turn on to begin with and you just started walking up the stairs, then there's no question. You can't blame you. You weren't even aware. You were just doing your own thing and it happened. You passed by a wall and by accident your shoulder hit the light. It's not even considered shogeg, a mistake. It's mitasek. Shogeg, mistake means that you know that it's forbidden, but you just forgot that it's Shabbat, or you do not know that it's forbidden. But when you hit it with your elbow, then when you pass by a door and you hit the light by mistake, you knew it was forbidden, You knew it was Shabbat. It just happened unintentionally. That's no problem at all. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you are aware that when I'm going to walk up the stairs right now, Psik Reshei, which means for sure it's going to happen, the lights will turn on. Can I or can I not? So Sfardi has to ask himself two questions. A, is it from the Torah or from Chachamim? If it's from the Torah, forget about it. But if it's an LED light, which nowadays the fridges, when you open the fridge door, not only lights turn on, you also have a lot of sensors of temperatures, and the magnets it's connected to a lot of sensors. But all these sensors are from Chachamim in the new fridges. They're Derabanan. So if my intention is not on the sensors and I forgot to put it on Shabbat mode for a Sfaradi, I will be allowed to open and close that fridge. Now, says Rabbi Ovadia, and we're learning his son's book, Yalkut Yosef, is from Rabbi Tzak Yosef, the former chief rabbi. He says, of course, if you are aware from before Shabbat, turn off your alarm system, turn off the light in your fridge, put everything on Shabbat mode. But if you forgot, if you didn't do it, then the Sfaradim are allowed to do it. On the way home from shul, this happens to me when I'm in Great Neck almost every Shabbat. On the way back from Steamboat Road into Potter's Ward, where my mother-in-law lives, there's a house over there that once you pass by, I think, I don't know, they're Korean or something, it starts talking to you, you are being in a surveillance camera, it starts like scaring you. I'm like, what? I'm just passing by. So what I do is I try to wait until a car passes by or someone else passes by and it starts talking to them, then I pass. But sometimes I get stuck there for half hour. What, I'm just gonna wait? So I don't want it to turn on. It's not turning on a light that's from the Torah, it's only Sul de Rabbanan, and therefore I'm allowed to. If you can avoid it easily, if it's a 2-minute delay and you can walk from somewhere else, good. But if that's your path and you have to take now a long turn that's going to add 20 minutes to your walk, you don't have to do that. You are allowed to. Anyway, that was in a nutshell a little bit about the term called Psik Reshei, chopping off the head, which literally means when I do something, for sure, something will happen. So again, the halakha for Sfaradim, if my attention is not on it, and it's from the Rabbanan, it's okay. But if my intention is on it, I enjoy the light in the fridge. I need it because I want to see what's going on. I'm happy it's turning on. That's a problem. Only if I don't care for it. I don't want it at all. Then it would be allowed. All right. So let's...
Wait, sorry,
What
the
if
Psik Reshei means cutting off the head, chopping the head off?
means cutting off a head. And in reference, it means, are you able to cut off a chicken's head to give your child to play with it?
Okay.
And you're
It
not
comes
going to
from
kill the
there. I
animal?
missed that.
Psik Reshei, for sure you're going to kill the animal. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
Sure, when I open the first door, I don't care about the light. Yeah, but it's going to happen. Is it allowed to or not allowed to? So what happens, for example...
question? Sorry, can
Oh,
I put one of those outside lights, which is not meant for me, but really for if someone comes in the backyard or
right. Good question.
I'm not doing it for myself, but it turns on if I pass by.
What do you mean you're not putting it for yourself?
Meaning I'm not putting it for myself to go out to play. I'm putting it for a stranger if someone comes in the backyard.
But a reality...
But if I pass by, it's gonna turn on.
Right. A reality of the matter is that if you can prevent that, if you can avoid that, better. Because even though it's Psik Reshei de lo nichale, when you pass by, you don't want the light to turn on, right? So it's lo nichale b'drabanan. So really, as I said before, this is something, if it's an LED light, assuming it's an LED light, it's, by the book, it's allowed. However, it says about Yalkut Yosef, if you can avoid it before Shabbat, of course, turn that off before Shabbat. Have it on all week. But if you forgot to turn it off before Shabbat, which means the diavad, okay, we could use it. But don't say, no, this is how I want it to be. I know on purpose on Shabbat, when I come to my house, I want to leave a light. Every time I'm going to walk in, it's going to turn on. If you're able to remember before and turn it off, that's the right thing to do. But if you're already in the situation, then you can do it. So now, the Yalkut Yosef brings an interesting case. What's the case? This is a case of mosquitoes. The mosquitoes are in the house. They're bothering us. I don't know if you're aware. There's a storm going on in Israel. It's Israeli standard. It's like it was a half an hour storm, whatever it was. But everybody in the news is talking about it. And water, a lot of the times, brings the mosquitoes. So there was a night here, a horrible night. Everybody was getting bitten by mosquitoes. I don't know how it works, but they all came. Mosquitoes come on Shabbat. Am I allowed to spray that kills the mosquitoes on them? Okay, so let's do the calculation. What's going to happen if I spray them directly? Are they going to die? They're going to die. It's Psik Reshei, and is it Deraorità or Derabanan? So you should know. Killing an animal on Shabbat There's a isur in the Torah. It's taking a life. So you're not allowed to spray on them directly. However, he offers a solution. He says, what are you going to do? You are allowed to, by the way, that's called Psik Reshei. It's definitely going to happen. And it's ניחא. It's comfortable for me that they're dying. My intention is that they'll die. If my intention was, I don't care that they'll die, then you could do a calculation. Maybe it's Darabanan, maybe it's Deraita, maybe it's considered indirect. No, but we have a problem, okay? So it says what you do is you spray it, but not directly on them, and you leave a window that's open. And then when you leave the window that's open, they could leave. But don't do it directly. If it's there, like shoot it directly because you're going to kill it, and that's already a problem. But in the area, and if he comes to it and he doesn't die and flies away, that would be the right way. Okay. We spoke about this concept called Shema.
Ziv.
Question?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's say I want to go to a hotel for Shabbat and they have sliding doors, automatic, and there's no door I can just pull to open.
Okay.
Is there an issue? Me walking directly through it?
I mean, when you walk, you're opening it, or you're talking about sensors that's already open and you're just turning on.
There's sensors, yeah. The automatic, if I'm near it, it's gonna open.
No, so in Israel there are two things. There's, let's say, hospitals that know that people keep Shabbat, so they leave the doors open, but the sensor is still on. So when I pass by, it goes. It sensed me coming in. I'll elaborate. And the case that I'm explaining right now, that would definitely be a Psik Reshei. It's happening, but I don't care for it, right? But when I walk in and the sensors catch me and open the door for me, ניחא, I want that to happen. I want to walk in. So that's a problem. You cannot do that. It's a isur de Rabbanan. It's not a isur from the Torah, but in order for you to do a isur de Rabbanan, you need to do it in a shinui, and you need a serious reason. Someone that is sick, or for mitzvah, or if you have a lot of tza'al. For example, it's like raining a crazy storm and you can't stand and you have to go in, and that's the only way to walk in. Then I would say walk in. What is the way to walk in bishinui? Let's say it's called shnaim she'asa'ua. Find another person, hold his hand, and walk in together. When you walk in as two people, it's considered lowering the level of the chumrah. So now it's not a regular isur from Chachamim. It's a reduced, it's called trei de Rabbanan. It's a isur from Chachamim that has been reduced once again by walking in with someone else. And trei de Rabbanan is still forbidden. The only time it's allowed is במקום mitzvah, or במקום צורך גדול, צורך רבים. Let's say it's done for a lot of people, or let's say you have a lot of sadness from it, that would be allowed. But just like that, to know from up front, I'm going to walk in and out, no, that's going to be a problem. You could wait till a goy comes in and try to walk with him without the sensor sensing. That would be the best way. And even if it sensed you, but the door was already opening anyway, you didn't cause it to be open, he opened it, it just sensed you. So that sense that it just ticked when you walked in, that's not a big deal, because that you really don't care for. He is the one that made the door open and he walked in for himself, then that's not a problem. All right?
Got it. Thank you.
Acceptable. All right. Okay, we spoke about the plot. I don't want to repeat that again, but I just want to mention that there's a concept now in the halakha called the kosher Shabbat oven. Anybody hear about that? There's a apartment here that someone asked me, why aren't you putting in it kosher for Shabbat ovens? And I think people are not aware, and it's important to get this halakha through. As we mentioned, what is the problem of putting food on coals? It appears like you are cooking, or you may touch the coals. So the Machon Tzomet, it's an establishment here in Israel, has found a solution. It's a kosher for Shabbat oven. That when you open the oven and you close the oven, it doesn't increase the heat or reduce the heat. It works on auto, so it doesn't even know if you opened the door on Shabbat or you didn't know. So would it be allowed or would it not be allowed? So let's break it down. Everybody agrees that if you put a solid in, then, no, not everybody agrees. Let's begin the other way. Everybody agrees that if you put liquid in, that's a problem, because we're not allowed to reheat liquid on Shabbat because it's considered like cooking. But can I put in solid into that oven? So the answer is, and this not enough people know, that these kosher for Shabbat ovens are only allowed when you put stuff in them before Shabbat. During Shabbat, you would be allowed to pull out food. But at any point during Shabbat, you're never allowed to put food back into the oven. Anybody know why? We learned this just now. What is the fear if someone puts, even if it's Shabbat oven, what is the fear? People don't know that it's Shabbat oven. So what if it's Shabbat oven? It's still considered michzeh kevasher. It appears like you're cooking because in the oven is the item in which we cook. So don't tell me I'm putting a sign that it's a Shabbat oven. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're putting raw potatoes in there. Once you put something into the oven on Shabbat, everybody thinks that you're cooking and it's asur. But it's a Shabbat oven, great. I can take out of the oven. When you take out, no one thinks you're cooking. Bottom line, if you find a kosher oven for Shabbat, it only means that you could take food out of it on Shabbat and you cannot put food into it. Just wanted to point that out.
Div, I have a question, and sorry if you touched on this last week. I wasn't here. So they have Shabbat ovens that you press the button for Shabbat mode, but it won't start until it senses food in there. But I'm assuming you can't put food in there, period.
So what made it a Shabbat oven if that's the case?
The light won't turn on. Nothing will
Oh,
happen until it
it's not-
senses food in there. Then it'll start going to whatever temperature you
Oh.
set it.
It's not a halachic Shabbat oven. It's someone found a way to make the light not turn on and to make the temperature.
No, it says Shabbat mode on the oven, but if nothing's in there, it won't heat. It's like a sensor with new technology. It won't actually start heating unless it senses something in there. So by you putting something in there, technically starts the process.
So I don't understand what makes that Shabbat. That's not at all a Shabbat oven. There's no Shabbat about it. But anyway, even if it were a Shabbat oven, putting in is a problem. Taking out in the Shabbat oven that Machon Tzomet, it's an establishment here in Israel that does a lot of kosher stuff. There's a kosher, let's say you forgot you don't have a way to light Shabbat candles and you're in a hotel room. They made like this thing that you plug in and it has the old light bulbs where it's considered a fire. You could say Baracha Ladlik Ner Shel Shabbat in your hotel room on that. They have a lot of halachic solutions, the kosher shaver or whatever it is, and they came out with a solution for this as well for the oven. But again, you need to know that that's only for taking out. You put it before Shabbat. You have a lot of guests. You want the food to stay warm, so you have an oven that's on Shabbat. No problem. When everybody arrives and you want to sit them down, you could pull off the oven, but not putting back.
But I've seen many people with warming drawers, very religious people, use warming drawers similar to an oven. They put food in there on Saturday.
So what's the difference? You tell me, what's the difference between a warming drawer and an oven?
What, the appearance of it doesn't look like you're cooking
Very
something?
good. And I don't know the specific warming drawer. You have to look into it to see if there's no muktzeh. I don't know that, but I'm just saying there's an invention now in Israel called the plata box. It's a regular plata, but you buy something that creates a second floor on the plata and a cover. And the rabbis allow that. Why? Because at the end of the day, even though the second floor, you're putting food on Shabbat and you're warming it up and you're taking it in and out and it appears like an oven, at the end of the day, it's a plata. Plata is not a tool that cooks food. It's a tool that warms food. And therefore, there's no mitzvah. There's no fear of it may look like you're cooking. With the oven, that doesn't exist. I'm assuming that if that drawer, I have to find out the details, but if that drawer is kosher, it's because of that. It's a warming drawer. It sounds like that's what you mean. Like you don't cook in that, right? So if there's a loophole, that would be the reason. All right. So in this topic of warming up food on Shabbat, there's a very important sugya called hatmana. Hatmana in Siman 257, Reish Nun Zayin. Hatmana means we all do this. So we're going to learn in a minute how is it kosher if we all do it. But you know the kalapuches, those kind of like pillows, blankets that you put on top of the pots on the plata on Shabbat to keep it all warm. All right? So that's a nice idea. Is that allowed or is that not allowed? So first of all, it's called hatmana. Hatmana means that you put some sort of cover on the item to either add heat to it or even to maintain heat on it, depending on the situation. Is it allowed or not allowed? We'll discuss right now. But that's hatmana. All right? So halacha is that you're not allowed to do hatmana. Let's say the pot now is on the plata and you're going to do matmin. Soon we'll see what the requirements. Is it if I just put it on top or does it have to cover it from all sides to be considered mutman? Mutman is like hidden. Like did I create it to be hidden with blankets only if I put it on top or only if it touches all the sides or just if I put it on top would it be a problem? All right? But what is the source? Where did this problem begin? The problem began, it says like this, it says the Yalkut Yosef, Asur le'atmin b'Shabbat, you're not allowed to do atmana on Shabbat, even with a blanket, it's not a thing that adds heat. Back in the day, they had some sort of thing that's made from the pits of the olives, and when they would put that around the pot, it won't only preserve the heat, it would add heat. We don't really have that today. But even if it doesn't add heat, it just preserves heat, it's forbidden to do it. Why? Because if you're allowed to take the hot pot that came out of the plata and cover it in a way that will maintain its heat, then you may come to see a cold pot and say, you know what? If I'm allowed to do that, I'm allowed to take the cold pot and heat it up and then do the atmana. It's a fear. It's a fear from Chachamim that by allowing that, someone's going to come to cook. You're allowed to maintain the warmth of your pot. You may come to put that pot on the plata when it's cold. So that's the source of it. That's the fear. Okay. Now, if it's mutman from before Shabbat, if you put it on the plata before Shabbat, then no problem. So when you come on Shabbat to take out food from the plata, you're allowed to put it back onto the plata and put the hatmana back on it. It's not like before. Once it got, still, if it was already on it at a certain point, then you're allowed to put it back on. Okay. But this is the important part. At least I want us all to know. So, according to the Shulchan Aruch, atmana is completely forbidden. Meaning, not if I cover the whole pot in blankets, it's forbidden. According to the Shulchan Aruch, even if I just put it on top, that would be a problem. But according to the Ashkenazim, to the Rama, no. The fear of Chachamim that you may come to heat up something is when you're doing an action that really preserves the heat so much that's going to lead someone to think that he can also put it on the plata. That's when he covers it from all sides. Just putting on top, mutar. Halacha lemaaseh, this halacha is an exception where the Sfaradim accepted the Ashkenazi halacha and not the halacha of the Shulchan Aruch. Halacha lemaaseh, we allow to put stuff only on top as long as it doesn't cover it from all sides. Now you may ask why. Arav Budbu, the son-in-law of Rav Ovadia, says, we always follow Shulchan Aruch. How come we left our Sephardi culture and now we joined the Ashkenazim because it's much easier and we want to put the blanket back on the plata on Shabbat? He explains that it's such a strict halacha by the Shulchan Aruch that it's just not realistic, because by forbidding even one side to be covered, you're basically not going to be able to heat up anything. Because it's not just that. Sometimes you put something with just a cover on it so that everything doesn't steam out, or whatever it is. Or the direct, let's say on the bottom, you put a plata and you put the pot on the bottom. Now you're even covering it from the bottom. It's not floating in the air. You have some sort of cover. Even from the bottom, you can see it one cover. So it's almost not realistic. And in the honor of Shabbat, it can't be that the halacha is going to be so strict on us that we can't warm up our food. And that's why over here we left the halacha of the Shulchan Aruch and we follow the Ashkenazim.
Ziv, Lahavdil, a couple of 10 years ago, that rabbi in New York had a tragedy in his house on a Friday night where he lost a bunch of children. Rabbi Sassoon, I believe was his name.
Fire.
I do recall it was the chief rabbi of the US or Israel kind of spoke about this and gave some leniency regarding plots and covering it and not covering it. I forgot what they said, but they definitely did come out with something, changing the rules a little bit because they determined that was the cause of the fire.
What? The cause was the blankets on the
Something with a plot and putting the blanket on top of it. That's what they determined what the cause was.
And I don't know the details. When you see the details and what you're talking about, what leniency would be interesting. I'm giving you the homework. You tell us.
Yeah, I'm gonna that's homework for me.
You tell us next time what exactly happened there, and then we could learn together why the leniency, if it occurred, and how and why. Just one more thing regarding the Psik Reshei. Let's say I forgot a light in the fridge that is Deraita. It's a real fire. All right. I forgot something in the car, and by opening the car, I don't know, I start an engine somehow, and it's a Isur Deraita. That's called Psik Reshei. Definitely it's going to happen. Mid'oraita, from the Torah, we said that it's forbidden, right? But if you have a goy over here, there's no Psik Reshei. With a goy, you could tell him, open the car door, even if the light turns on, open the fridge, no problem. So in America, it's much easier because goyim are available. Any problem that has to do with Psik Reshei, that by me doing something, unintentionally something else will happen that's asur, I can do that by a goy at any time. But just know that. All right. Chazaku Baruch. So now we are in Siman Reish Samech 260. And this Siman talks about washing your entire body in honor of Shabbat. Okay? So by doing that before Shabbat, right, we are honoring the Shabbat. as we learned, anything that is done before Shabbat is to the honor of Shabbat. Anything that is done during Shabbat is mitzvat oneg. Remember, we learned about oneg Shabbat, b'tarat ala Shabbat oneg, and we also learned about kavod Shabbat. So what's the difference between kavod, honoring the Shabbat, and pleasuring the Shabbat? Pleasure is during Shabbat. Oneg is and kavod is everything I did before Shabbat. So he says taking a shower on Friday is the mitzvah of kavod Shabbat. You're preparing for Shabbat. It's a mitzvah to do so. It's also a mitzvah to get a haircut or to shave, right? He says, and if you can't do it on Friday, do it on Thursday. It would be still considered if you're doing it for the honor of Shabbat. Same thing with cutting the nails. And he says a side note over here, please, when you cut the nails, make sure not to drop them on the floor. It seems like the fear is a pregnant woman that may step on it and chas v'chalila something may happen. So be careful. Yeah. Generally, the nails are something tameh. Some even used to bury it, some used to burn it. Whatever it is, don't just leave them out there. Try to flush them down, or you can't put them in the garbage, but definitely don't leave them hanging. There's a lot of mystical things around the nails. All right. So debating, should we start the next topic? But I think in 3 minutes, we can touch it. Next week, it will be Chanukah. And Rizal Hashem, I'll be in New York. So let's see. Maybe we'll talk about Chanukah, maybe more Yalkut Shabbat. We're open. Let's, hopefully I'll see you guys in Shabbat and Shul. We'll discuss a little bit. But until then, the next topic is Reish Samech Aleph, Siman 261. And it deals with something called Safek Chashicha. When we have a doubt if it's dark or not dark. When is this relevant to? We want to know, when is Motzei Shabbat? How did we come to the time that say, okay, now is Motzei Shabbat? Because it's not 24 hours. We start Shabbat earlier and we end Shabbat later. It's 25 hours, sometimes even more than that. How do we get to these numbers? What exactly happens? So really, Shabbat comes in from Shkia. Only we want to be careful, so we take it in from before Shkia. But let's say now it's Shkia. In Israel, we usually call it the 18 minutes because it's about 18, 20 minutes before Shabbat. Before Shkia, the papers write that Shabbat begins, right? But now, Shkia occurred. And between Shkia and a certain amount of time, some will hold that this amount of time is 13 and a half minutes. Some will hold that this amount is up to 18 minutes. But in that time, between 13 to 18 minutes after Shkia, that's called Safek Chashifa. That is Ben Hashmashot. Meaning it belongs to the day or does it belong to the night? This time is crucial, for example, when it comes to Brit Milah. If a baby is born in this time, we don't know what day to connect him to. What is going to be his 8th day? The day before or the day after? We have to talk with the Rav, we have to see. And since you have a doubt, you're usually going to push it off just in case you don't hit the 7th day. It's better you hit the 9th day. What happens if that falls on Shabbat? Since it's a fake, you may have to push it off now to the 10th day, right? So this is a case that we are aware of, right? But what is the term? There's a term in halakha called a mil. A mil, there's a machloket if it's 18 minutes or 22 and a half minutes or 24 minutes, but it's some sort of term. And 3/4 of the mil, say Chachamim, is that time that is a doubt of darkness. So 3/4 of 18 minutes will be the 13 and a half. 3/4 of 24 minutes will be the 18. So that's the doubt. So we don't know if it's the Safek is up to 13 and a half minutes or the Safek is up to 18 minutes. But whatever it is, that period is called Safek Chashifa, Safek Ena Chashifa, like we read in Bamim Adikim. Safek Chashifa, Safek Ena Chashifa. What is that? That is the time. All right? So when do we take out Shabbat? So according to the different opinions, that maybe Shabbat is 13 and a half minutes after Shkia, maybe it's 18. To avoid everything, Chachamim say best to keep 20 minutes after Shkia, it's definitely Tzet Shabbat. Now, Halacha L'Maaseh, there's another term that the Gemara says, that you need to see in the sky 3 medium stars. Only what's the problem? In different countries, according to what's happening or your climate conditions, raining, not raining, you're not always going to be able to see the 3 stars. You're not able to see it. So what do we do? We add time. So in most countries, you get to 30 to sometimes even 40 minutes after Shkia, that it's a definite time that Shabbat left. That's how we got to it. But really, the dry halacha should have been the most strict case, 18 minutes. They rounded it up to 20 just in case you're off by a minute or two. And from that 20, people are more strict and add 10, 20 minutes to make sure that Shabbat is fully out. So that would add us to 40 minutes after Shabbat. And the 20 minutes before Shabbat are in addition to Shabbat, Tosefet Shabbat, so that we come into Shabbat and add time. Most poskim hold that adding time to Shabbat is actually a mitzvah from the Torah, Tosefet Shabbat. So strongly recommended if you can light the candles and accept Shabbat before Shabbat, and more about it. Right, Rabotai, we'll hold right.
That's why Tosafot, it's always like 40-something minutes later.
So, okay, Tosafot, we have to, you're talking about Rabbeinu Tam? Is that what you're talking about?
Sorry, Rabbeinu Tam.
Rabbeinu Tam, I assume you're talking about that. So I was debating if I should touch that or not. It's a little bit long, so we have to understand that
next time.
Different shita. He holds that there are two sunsets. You want, maybe next time we'll touch it a little bit, Bezat Hashem. All right, I want to keep
Chazak Baruch, thank you.
Chazak Baruch, have a safe trip, Steve.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.